So good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? We'll be waiting for a few more. I know there's a lot of people that signed up for this. With Paul joining us now there as well too, which is great. I suppose just a few things in there before we start. This is being recorded to send out as well to everybody. So if anybody is, if you want to speak or if you want to even write any questions in, it will be sent out to everybody as well. So just be mindful of that. Everybody is muted, and again, there's a Q&A and the chat box there as well too. Should be on your thing, and that's really it. We're not going to do any polls or quizzes. If you do have any questions throughout all of this, by all means, please ask away, and myself and Paul will answer them, either if we get them through this presentation or at the very end. So I think that's it. We're just going to get stuck into it. So I'm delighted for our latest webinar to be joined by Paul O'Gara. I've been very fortunate to work alongside Paul now for a number of years. Paul works in Arborlee, Arborlee School and Resource Centre, and is amazing. I think he's very passionate about what he does. He has worked in both mainstream and in the special needs as well. So Paul has got a huge background, specialist in PE, and yeah, probably not doing really that much justice. So Paul, if you'd like to quickly just introduce yourself to everybody then.
No problem. Hello everybody, how are you? And again, I suppose it's just jumping on here from a special school background. And again, I've worked in mainstream and special school environments. I'm a primary teacher with a special interest in PE, and it's just, again, just working hard at the right things, just like we're all doing, trying to balance everything and just coming up with a few strategies and experiences. I'll try and share them that I've come across over 9-10 years. And again, as Gary mentioned there, if you have any questions, sometimes, I have to say I'm looking forward to just chatting to Gary, and when he asked me to come on to this, to think on this, it's helped me learn too, and you're just learning every day. So fire away any questions, it'll help us as well.
Excellent. So we're going to get stuck into it, guys. So for any of you who don't know as well too, I'm Gary Wallace. I'm the founder of Core Kids, and our main mission is to inspire people, anybody we work with, to live a happy, healthy, more fulfilling life. So, and essentially that's it. So in a nutshell, and this is one way that we try and do this, to try and educate between teachers and everyone as well. So today, the main focus is developing the whole child, and especially looking at how we can integrate children with SEN and mainstream and everything in between into focusing on our PE lessons too. So we will get straight in. Myself and Paul are just going to kind of pre-host this as well, and just bounce off each other. And make sure you take plenty of notes, and any questions we'll share our details at the end. So first thing then I have is the session overview. So we're going to look at what is PE and physical literacy, understanding physical development of children, inclusion in PE, what we can do as practitioners, as teachers, the readiness for PE, PE lesson plan, using a step process, and then a lot of resources that we're going to share with you guys as well too. So starting off, it's just what is physical education. I kind of go through this, and we can talk a wee bit around it, and we'll get into a lot of the stories even behind, but really it's all about educating the whole child. It's the social, emotional, physical development all in one, can be delivered through physical education. It's having those physical literacy skills. So getting the child physically literate to jump, to roll, to hop, to skip, to jump. One thing I know Paul and one of his other colleagues there in the school, Jane, works a lot on retained reflexes. Now, don't think this is going to be a webinar to delve right into that, but essentially it is what can happen to children whenever they retain these reflexes that they don't release at such a young age, essentially, and how that can affect their physical development. Because then that moves us on to the next thing, what we call our perceptual motor skill development. So that's like our visual, our auditory, or sensory development. So those are key. We'll touch a little bit on then. I'll let Paul explain a bit about those in one of our next slides. It's the social skills of physical education. It's all their targets and strategies linked in with the curriculum. It's an amazing time to be creative, and our personal skills. So just that quick overview. And the definition probably between PE and physical literacy. If anybody, if you've seen this before, This is what the University of Ulster and worked closely with the University of Limerick, I think it was, that they came up with an all-island study or an all-island approach to physical literacy. And this was their statement. So physical literacy is the movement, confidence, physical competence, knowledge, and understanding that enables a person to value and participate in physical activity throughout life. Why do we put this on? Because one of the cornerstones and foundations of helping people to be physical literate is starting their journey at PE. And I will empathize with teachers throughout this because, first of all, teachers are time poor. You have so much to be getting on with. Sometimes physical activity be put to the side. But we are going through current epidemic of childhood obesity, of everything. Even our mental health, our well-being, our social skills, they're starting to fall down. So helping our children be physical literate will actually help them socially, emotionally, physically, and also academically. So it's really keen that we do this. And I'll let Paul, have you anything to kind of add on to that so far? We're just waiting to get in the nuts and crusts of it in a minute.
Yeah, no, just basically what you're saying, I suppose, just come back to just looking at the ethos. For me, I just try to bring everything back to physical education, the ethos of it. And you're just trying to teach the child and get them to have a positive relationship with being active, and there's that difference between physical education and sport and so on. And it's just looking at, if the child's struggling, trying to take a step back and think, right, plan, do, review, approach, why are they struggling? What can we try and do? And again, that's where you sometimes can take a step back and look, is it retained reflexes issues, which sometimes is like the cognitive function within the brain, and maybe sometimes it can, children just take longer to develop them. And again, you're just looking at, the social skills, tactics, and strategies. Does it always have to be physical literacy skills all the time, or sometimes do we need to try and make sure that it's a combination of all to keep everybody interested? Because sometimes if you're really focusing on, right, you must catch the ball and the child could have a negative relationship with that particular skill. So you're trying to bring it back in a sense, right? How can we try and get them to a skills level that they'll actually want to? So it might be catching something else, and just the things around that. But again, we'll touch on that throughout the rest of the day.
Excellent. So again, look, that's really kind of just an overview of what we're looking at. This probably sums it up in terms of what we're doing, and again, when we look at children, we're looking at developing the whole child, and there is no real differentiation between them. We're going to use a brilliant phrase further on down the line, which Paul has been a big advocate for and uses a lot. But when we're thinking about their physical literacy and their physical development, it's also starts off at the very, very bottom. So when you're starting to build a house, you must start with strong foundations. In this phase, we're looking at play. Now, if children, and some of them may not, depends on the environment they've grow up in, everything now is a lot more stationary, there's a lot more screen time, etc. They may not even get the levels of play that they may have got maybe even 5-10 years ago. They may have different environments that they may not be able to do this. So with this, and when they don't get that feeling of play, of love and care and support, even to a certain degree, what happens is they don't have the strong foundations to build them physically, socially, and emotionally. And even that affects them academically hugely. One thing here is the retained reflexes. So whenever they are really young child, a small infant, so from 0 right up to 18 months or so, this is a major time when they can release these retained reflexes. Again, as I say, we're only touching on these now, but there's a number of retained reflexes, and there's a few exercises that can be done even through sensory circuits, which Paul will talk a little bit about. But this is the building block. So unfortunately, some of our children are coming into our classroom, be SEN, be mainstream, and they maybe don't have this developed already. Moving on to that, the next level, if you're putting in again in the actual foundations, so this is the strong foundations of the soil, but you still haven't even developed the first level of your house. These are color perception and motor skill development. So these are things like your auditory awareness, your visual, your tactile. So loads of stuff there now that you're looking to do to get the children involved with. Things like this will happen, for example, if we look at our vestibular system, which is our ability to spin and keep control, which is a balance in between our two ears. Simple things we used to do when we were younger was get to the top of a hill and roll down it on our sides. That was all through play. Unfortunately, some children don't get the opportunity to do that as much. Spaces are getting more built up. We don't have access even to that field that has the big hill. I'm sure if you think about it, that field now where you used to roll down is probably an estate or got houses on it a little bit as well too. So there's loads on that to do. Then when we come into school, we're looking at these multi skills. So our FMS, our fundamental movement skills. And this is where we start our kids. Now, unfortunately, if they don't have anything below that, they may struggle with these fine skills. So they may struggle with your running, your throwing, your kicking, your catching, everything along there. So it's really important for us even just to understand that. Then after we've got that, we're really moving into our sports specific skills. So you're moving in and utilizing your sports specific skills. So it's like building a house. If you're going and you're putting children into sports and getting them to play maybe organized games or getting them to play really even sports specific skills. So I'm talking about striking, kicking a football to a certain way using the inside outside of your foot, picking up a tennis racket, a hockey stick, and trying to strike with that. It's like putting the roof onto a house without the foundations there. It's going to collapse. And what that can have a negative effect on is their social and emotional and even academic development. So when we do this, if we start getting children from getting up from their play and their perception motor skill and motor skill development, even children in SEN and mainstream development, this is maybe we have to regress our sessions. So we have to pull it back. If they do have all of this, as we move up this thing, they grow in confidence. Children grow in confidence. They have a positive experience with PE, with physical activity. Their competency too and actually executing these skills hugely increases. And when we look at it, that's our overall physical literacy. So Paul, I'm only seeing half of your eyes there. If you want to pull that screen maybe the other way there now too.
Right.
So, no, you're all right. You're all right. There we go.
Right.
See your beautiful face. So
I'm sure that'll make it better.
as I say, I'm going to come around with the overview. Paul, there's not too much maybe to add on that. It's maybe more what we're going to talk about in the next slide. Yeah. So it's just to give everybody an overview. This is where some of our children, unfortunately, are coming in to us at 4, 5, 6, and 7, and they may not have a strong foundation. So don't be worrying if you're thinking, oh, my PE lesson, it's maybe too advanced, it's oversensitive for some people, children with the SEN or mainstream. So this is something that Paul comes on. So Paul, I'll let you take away this one here.
Yeah,
this top no one when we talk about inclusion in PE.
Yeah, no problem. I suppose let's say, can everybody see me? Can you see me okay, Gary?
Yeah, you're good now.
Perfect. Right. So again, for me, this comes down to the clear thinking in PE, looking at the children in front of you that day. So diffabilities, not disabilities. And you're sort of looking at, there's a lot of things that can maybe affect children engaging in PE. And, there could be a range of maybe children with autism, learning disabilities, maybe cognitive functioning, Down syndrome, with physical disabilities. And for me, we found over the years of trying to look at it and what can they do rather than what they can't do, and sort of thinking, building a program around them, because at the end of the day, everybody has a right to physical education. Everybody has a right to feel the fun, as we touched on at the start, to have an opportunity to learn the physical literacy skills, an opportunity to develop their creative thinking, their strategies, to develop social skills and their social and emotional. And we all know the benefits of being physically active and how it can help our mental health, our social development and physical and so on. So you're trying to, for me, if we look at the thing that I found and mistake that I sort of made when I first started teaching PE was maybe trying to do too much and maybe expecting too much of the children, wanting the children to do the outcome of the lesson that I wanted, not actually the outcome of their lesson. So it's trying to change your thinking in a sense, right? Say if you're trying to teach athletics and you're trying to teach running, jumping and throwing, and you're trying, sometimes you maybe do it with class and do a wee bit of that all in the one lesson, and then you think, no, that didn't work, so you strip it back and maybe do just running. And then sometimes, do you need to teach running to start with, or do you just need to let them go? And it go back to what Gary said, they're like building a house, and I really like that as an example. You start off your foundations, and foundations, to be honest, it's play. And I know at the start, sometimes that was something I struggled with as a teacher, because probably all the same, we like to have everything organized. So at the start, what I used to try and do was have a set of activities or a set of equipment set out in the corner, and it was the equipment that I was going to use for the lesson, and I just let the children play, and it was just literally, that was the one instruction: just go and have fun. And they would take, say, it was a ball or a hoop, and they would do their own wee thing with it, and it was really interesting. And then I could sit back and watch, and it allowed me to have a chance to see their difficulty. What way are they rolling the hoop? What way are they throwing the ball? And then that allowed me to build a program on how to teach them, and sort of a sense on how to go in. And then you build that on with, again, once that's all done, you get everybody right, freeze, put everything down, and then get everybody to take a seat or have safe zones for where they're sitting, and then you get everything set up. And again, just looking at that phrase there, is what I always am a big advocate of, to teach the child that's in front of you that day. Sometimes for me, your lesson, and we're all teachers, and you have a million things to be doing, and sometimes PE is the last thing you have time to think on. And in a sense, for me, it's taking that chance, right? You're busy, so it's trying to think, and you don't have time for this, right? How's the child feeling? You know, what was their day like? What was their weekend like? And you might know that, and you might never know the details, but sometimes you can judge, right? Okay, I don't really know, but I've got a wee sense from the body language there, there's something not right. So do you know what? I'm going to maybe adapt my session. Rather than a load of talking, I'm going to let them do their own warm-up. And all of a sudden, that's the child, for once, they've got a bit of freedom, right? But clear parameters, benches, there's markers around, don't go into that. And then in the warm-up, you're starting to see what way can the session go. And then you're sort of looking at too, right, you do your normal. For me, there's something that I would always do in PE that I found sometimes the use of the voice all the time, and you'll be sick of me and George's voice by the end of this, can be a trigger. You know, it's a classic. Teachers we always do it. We're constantly talking and using their voices and so on. What I've tried to do, and sometimes it helps, is put my hand up and stay quiet. And I make it very clear, I explain to start, when I put my hand up, I'm just going to, the lesson stops, and we wait till everybody has their hand up, and then you can sort of explain things and so on. And again, I found that has been very good, and you just have to be persistent with that. And then that helps you sort of see that sometimes as a child having a sensory overload, because if they're the fourth one to have their hand up, they're basically telling you, yes, sir, I want quiet here. And then that helps all the peers to go in as well. And then we're just moving on to what are the triggers? And as we've gotten the PowerPoint there, like the situations, again, the triggers could be trauma. It could be things that just have happened in the past. And as we've written there, what happened to you rather than what is wrong with you? You know, you're trying to think of that sort of sense. And it's hard because you're trying to sort of think, right, okay, and how do you approach that? If there's an assistant that's been with them, or sometimes like if you have information, maybe with the senior management team might be fit to give you, but you sort of find out, is anything that I can need to know? Is it happy or sad? And I know something that we'll talk about later on is like zones of regulation, and sort of the feelings, and trying to understand that and build a picture in the child. And the last wee bit I'm just going to talk about here, and jump in anytime, Gary, if you have any questions or anything. Just is, what are the triggers? And sometimes it can be the environment, it can be too noisy. It can be, I'm sure we're all the same, our PE halls, our transport halls, their drama halls, and so on. And you just have to work with what you can, and you try and make the environment the best that you can. Is it too noisy? Is it useful for a child to have ear defenders? Do you have safe zones? Is there like a wee area? For me, I'd always like to create a bench, the same bench that they come in the morning, or whatever time I have them for PE. That's always our start the lesson bench. So every child has a clear structure. They know that that's the bench they sit on, and then we'll let the session start. And then I'll create a wee safe area, and it just be a mat. And sometimes I put like a wee Swiss exercise ball, or sometimes it's just a bench. And it's an opportunity to the child. I'll just show this, and again, we'll touch on it later on, but it's a wee thing called body breaks or movement breaks. I don't know if we can see them in the camera. And it's the thing I like about this, it's a safe area, it's a chill area, but the child's still doing PE, so they can do it very naturally. If they're having a bad day and they don't need to tell it, so they just go over to the wee area and they can still do their exercise. Now they're doing like wee sensory stations that maybe you build up to, you need to teach them beforehand. as we holding their arms and pushing against the wall and different wee hand things. But the child doesn't see, the peers don't see that the other child is different because they're still doing a form of PE. And then you'll find, you know, other children will do that and then build on. And then people, like we can be triggers. You know, I know sometimes it's a thing I say, or it's a thing I do, or it could be the color I'm wearing. It could be that I'm wearing a watch or not wearing a watch. And you just try and build up and reduce them triggers. So that's generally, if you've any other things out there, jump
Yeah,
in.
no, I think the biggest thing for all of this, Paul, as we're saying, and you give that example. So, for example, if we have some child who has a sensory overload and maybe they're autistic and they can't deal with that, maybe it's the way that we have given the instructions. There's too many instructions. And if they have that trigger, what you're actually doing is you're not saying, oh, sit down or leave the room for a while. Your first thing is go to that safe zone or area where they're still physically active. So they're not actually being told that they're out of the lesson. They're still engaged in what your theme is getting children physically literate. So, but two things are happening. They're starting to regulate before they can come back in to that session. Because even sometimes we do it in some of our sessions, if they're regulated by sitting at ease and still, then that could be their safe thing for the rest of the session. And they may not want to leave that environment. Where if they're in a more active environment, they can easily come in. And I think the biggest thing, what you were saying as well there too with the hand, the biggest thing with that, like a lot of us will do it, you know, you've seen in schools and they'll have a little clap, whatever it may be. As you said, you're being more aware, but is that child putting their hand up straight away because they're ready to stop? It's not that they're doing it for a behavior management strategy. It's more so, this is a huge sensory overload. I'm struggling. I cannot wait until you put your hand up. You put your hand up, you go, oh, that was quick. And everything that we've talked about here, and I put in this one about what happened to you, not what is wrong with you. This is all related to massively like the childhood trauma or to a situation maybe that could have happened that day if something really happened in the past. So rather than us getting frustrated and saying, what's wrong with you? It's what has happened to you. And again, we're teachers. We are all there. You know, you can't be a specialist in PE, numeracy, literacy, a psychologist, everything. But we do, unfortunately, we do have to wear these hats. You do have to put these hats on. So for me, it's just all of this is not to say you have to be an expert or really delve into it. It's just about building that level of awareness. And that's one thing I would have got a lot from working in your school, Paul, with that. So I think that's some already stuff you paid. One thing you were saying too about was even like, so the blue tack set one of your guys off in your school as well. You know, there's little wee triggers like that people may not be aware.
You're just looking at their environment and the child tells you what the triggers are and you're just trying your best in your head. How can we reduce them? Like as Gary mentioned there, we're chatting the other day, like our halls, transport hall as well. And there's sheets up around with lists of who goes where, and we use blue tack. And literally the child told me she's not doing anything else until we take every blue tack off the wall. So we took it off the wall, child engaged. And that was very good and that was great. And it's trying to just, where possible, can you identify them? And I suppose just with the word inclusion in PE, for me, you're just constantly being relentless in your head, and that you're trying, as Jerry said there, you're just trying to get every child on the journey to learn to be physically literate at their level. And sometimes is the hall too much for them? And you're doing your power to reduce the anxiety of the hall, the sensory overload and different things. And then you're trying to think, right, to have inclusion in PE, we always associate with the PE hall, but sometimes you may have to take a step back, right? You need to build that child's relationship with being physically active. And that can be done throughout a variety of reasons in the playground, structured play, unstructured play. Can it be done in the class? Can you do chair aerobics? Is the child engaging in that? And then can you, if an activity you did in the class, you know, whether it be wee movement breaks, and we'll talk about that in a wee minute, you can do it in the class and the child's engaged in that. Is there a way to bring that into the hall? And then, or to make, if they've got an issue with the halls are too noisy or perception. And as me and Gary talked the other day, sometimes it's fear of getting hit with something that could be sore. It's the fear of a noise being too much. Sometimes if you can, and if you have time with your fast team or within the school, try and break them down and go through them. You know, say for example, I know at times some of the children won't really want to catch a ball because they'll feel they're going to get hit. Sometimes I would say like catching your cobweb and then get your hands like a cobweb and wrap around it. And I remember throwing the ball and constantly jumps out of the way, but then showed them a soft ball and showed a hard ball. And once I actually got sensory touch and sensory feel, so it's trying to see if sometimes sensory issues can be the issue. Can you overcome that with soft and hard balls, bigger balls, or does it have to be a ball, can be a handkerchief and so on? But that's, I think that we're, you know, we'll cover that in the next couple of slides.
No, I think, yeah, because the big thing then, this is really what we're trying to do in PE. As Paul says, it's that whole thing about building the confidence, slowly doing it, creating a lesson. The question is, how can each child access PE? And that for me is like the vocal point of the whole thing, and to educate every child so they're not sitting out. Now, one way that we look about doing this is readiness to engage in PE. So some of the stuff that we do, I know Paul has a few of the visuals here as well too, but Paul mentioned there, before your children are going to go into the PE environment, especially, for example, if you have children in a unit in a primary school, they're in a small controlled environment, maybe up to 8 children in the class. They may be going to merge with another class of up to 30 kids in a unstructured, in a huge environment. Is there an activity you could possibly do to get the children in the unit ready to join the class? Or even if that child is in the classroom already intermingled in within the mainstream class, maybe it's bringing them down to the hall first to let them engage and maybe play music, maybe get them to move around, maybe have a bit of fun with them. So whenever the children join them from mainstream environment, it's going to be that bit more engaging. So that's one thing. Paul, I know a lot of schools will use it, but use constant first and then. And even you mentioned about the language, even that using that, don't mix it up between now and then or first and then. Do you want to just show or explain a bit about that?
Yeah, no problem. I suppose, again, we'll not go into massive detail on schedule and stuff because that got great training on its own. But generally within like the readiness to learn, you're trying to prepare the child to access PE. So you're trying to think, right, we all probably like to know what we're going to do, don't we? So you're trying to think, right, what's first, what's then? And actually, just show you an example here. It's very, and we're trying to show you real simple examples that you can use in mainstream and special, and you can get more detail if you need. I don't know if we can see that. It's very simple, just straight up first and then. And again, the advice from
you hold it up a wee bit higher. I don't think we can see the then. Yeah, you can pull it back to your face a wee bit, and then you'll see. So you have a wee. You have a lot of schools will use this already, but in case there isn't schools, you've already the Velcro there, and then you will take pictures of what I say happening. Have you got examples of those as well? Of course you do.
No, I actually don't have. Sorry, I don't
have. Oh, caught you out there.
You did. But you just, like, say for argument's sake, you were doing a re-movement chart. Say if you were doing this re-movement break, you just stick it on first, and then the child would do the activity, and then you have the then on first. And again, you can use timers to identify the time between the first and the then. And then we'd also sometimes use, again, if you all can see it, first, then, and then the next. And again, just on that, as Gary mentioned there about the different sort of advice on it. Again, if this was a course and schedule, they'd be telling you, don't go from side to side, go from top to bottom. Now, again, we find children use both and access both and respond to both. But I think the idea is trying to see that there's a start and an end. And sometimes the research would be that first, then, and then say, for example, I'd say, right, PE in the hall, and then it would be time sensory integration room. And then sometimes what PE in the hall would do, I would have a longer one and just have pictures of all the photo activities that I've done that we're going to do. And they'll just take them off and move them on, and helps them understand it. And then other things that we're talking about, movement breaks, as we talked about at the start, readiness to engage in PE. If the child is constantly sitting and not engaging, and it can be too noisy and so on, you're trying to use everything in your power to build a positive relationship with physical education. And it's just about being active and having fun. And it's much more than just having to bounce the ball, throw it and catch and kick. And again, you're trying to do this, and you could do this very much every morning in your class, and teachers and class assistants can just attach this to, like, I know in school we have lanyards. You can just attach it very easy, and you can just say, right, you're going to do this wee movement, and it shows it visual. And then you're going to do this one, you're going to move your hand and you're moving your head like that, back and forward. And these are body breaks, and these can be done at any time in any lesson and help the child regulate. But for me, there's a readiness for learning in general, but they're also giving you another incentive from a physical education point of view. They're helping the child understand if you needed to sit down and do a social story with them, say if they don't like PE, you're realizing, but you're doing PE every morning in your sensory circuit and your morning movement breaks. And how do you feel doing that? And they'll say, I feel good, it helps me relax. And it's like, right, we'll build up on that and we'll develop that. And then just touching on sensory circuits. So the main purpose of sensory circuits is to help the child build confidence and have a positive relationship using the body to be active. So again, it's using movement breaks and sensory circuits, which can be used to open the cognitive function for literacy, numeracy, and so on, but it's also helping you create a positive relationship with physical education. And sensory circuits can be done in many ways. And then this last wee one we're going to touch on just before we move on to more detail on sensory circuits is the resources that can help reduce the triggers, ear defenders, timers, and again, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and that can be on the activity, or it could be right to chill out time for 5 minutes. And sometimes, again, clear zoned areas for my space PE activity, I would call sometimes. So I know it's not always possible with groups of 25 and 30 to have group activities all the time, but one thing I know Gary would be a big advocate of as well is having that in my space. The first thing in your session, always having a wee area of your hallway, but just one mat that's somewhere somebody can go and do a wee individual thing on their own. They can do the exact same thing you're doing. They're just doing it in that area. And they might never use it, but it needs to know, because I remember doing it one time, it was a child, to be honest with you, like he's, when he was trying to come to Bone Skull, player of the matches, fantastic athlete. And I was surprised one time I had set up in the corner and it was literally about that day, nobody used it, was going to take it away. He went into it. And it actually, he told me, and I didn't know, and I found out weeks later, he was going through a lot of personal trauma. And he was going through, there was a lot of personal baggage in his home life. And it was the last child that I would have thought that would needed time out from a group activity of PE, but he did the exact same thing just in the moment. And then see from that, when he did it, the following week, there was different ones. And again, it just builds that confidence for PE.
Brilliant. No, excellent. And I think you've given a few examples there. And I know, as I say, we are relating this to triangle story because it's very general and open for everybody. But there's a lot of writing in these, and don't worry, we'll send all of this on. But really quickly, just in your sensory circuits, then if you watch really quickly, we can go through these. So there's 3 definitions of sensory circuit. Can you first of all explain what a sensory circuit is, when and what areas maybe in a school would you use it? And first of all, can you use it before PE, during PE, and even after PE?
Yep, brilliant. Well, for me, again, it's trying to organize the brain, help the brain to function. I suppose that was the best way to think. It's trying to, we all are sensory, and some of us can be sensory seekers and some of us can be sensory avoiders, and we just don't realize it. So you're just trying to, and then the main aim of the sensory circuits is to alert the brain, so get the brain and the body and active and learning. And then you're trying to get it warmed up by organizing it. And again, you can read there yourself, there's a range of activities. And some of the alerting activities can be similar to the organizing and so on. And then you're looking at the sensory calming activities. And again, this is when you're trying to calm the brain and calm and get readiness. And it's like a warm-up session, cool down. Think of that as the sensory circuit. The sensory circuit's like an alerting, that's like your warm-up if you're doing your stretches and all that. And then organizing is like your main body of learning, right? They're ready to go here. You're trying to get the brain fired up, and then you're calming, and then all of a sudden, and trust me, really stay with it. It's one of those, I have to say, when I didn't really use it until I went into a special school environment. And again, we tried to get children more of it and more of it and more of it. It just wasn't possible due to resources, space, and so on. COVID actually helped us out with that thing. With less moving around, we used the corridors more, and we had simple, and there's very simple ways to do it. You don't need a load of fancy equipment. You can, and it helps, but nice wee simple things of pictures of them activities, or even descriptions. The children are good readers, of them. We photos of the staff doing funny walks, animal walks, just up. They'll love that. They'll get engaged. And that all really helps build a positive environment. And as Jerry mentioned there, it's very positive in the morning. That would be the best time we would advise. But to be honest with you, anytime. For me, I try and build it into sensory circuits in the morning and build it around the school, and it gets them started for the day. But sometimes if a child's having a sensory overload, you sort of just get them out of that crisis and maybe just let them do a wee bit of their body breaks rather than their sensory circuit, and then sort of say, right, are you ready? Do you want to do a wee sensory circuit? And again, for me, what I would do within PE, I try and build it on, I call them sensory PE activities rather than sensory circuits. So I'm not worrying too much about alerting. I'm not worrying too much about organizing. I'm not worrying too much about the calming, but I'm doing them in like that sort of organized format, maybe in a line, and I'm trying to get the child to do a running activity, a jumping activity, and so on. And I found that very positive because the child was very clear with, like, it comes back to this first and then. The sensory circuits are very much, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And it helps the brain understand. And if you create your lessons like that, you try and see what way does a child see a PE lesson. So if you do first, then you do then you're doing then you're doing then. It's using the sensory circuits to build up your opportunity to teach PE and to use it. Now, the child won't know what you're doing. They're just doing the activities you're asking. They won't know that they're alerting the brain. They won't know what they're organizing. They won't know what they're calming. You know, so it's just going on from that.
So you would say, so for example, if you were integrating, if there was a child in a mainstream environment with additional needs, this could be something that they could go down before in the hall to do.
Could do, yeah.
Or would you do it in a certain area? If you had, as you said, I've seen your school as well set up. There's just Swiss balls and maybe balance walking things, just not in the quarter, but the way the school is designed. So if there's an area maybe where you think you can go down and they can just jump on a ball and sit in a ball and you hold their hands and bouncing up and down, that's essentially a bit of your sensory circuit work. Would that be, what would you advise on that? If there was somebody, say for example, there's somebody who really struggles in that environment, how would they use a sensory circuit to get them regulated and ready for a PE lesson?
Yeah, no problem. So again, you're just looking at the child and you're thinking the I cans, what can they do? So you're looking at the list of the alerting activities. You know, can they bounce? Can they jump? Can they do step ups? And you're trying to keep them very simple. And again, step ups could just be marching on the spot, lifting your legs up. And again, and then moving on to organizing activities and picking some of the things. So you're looking at the child and what is the can do's for that. Like if they'll struggle with log rolls, it's not going to be successful then. You know, they can push up against the wall, and you do it with them and you build their confidence. It might take maybe a week or two for them to have the confidence to do it, and then you just repeat it all the time. And what I would say, Gary, as you mentioned there, if you did it before PE and it worked, just try it. It works for one child, it won't work for another. But I would do it for that, and then you've got them warmed up, and then you've got them ready to listen. You've got them actually used to using the arms, you know, and then you try and think, right, is there an opportunity? Some of the activities that I did in the sensory alerting, sensory organizing, and calming, will I try and do them in a group activity in the PE session then? Because you know, build on from that.
Of course, yeah. So you're identifying, and as you said too, even with those movement cards and stuff, which I think we can share as well too. Would be, you know, they're only cutouts out as well, so we can share that as a resource with you guys. Anybody's on this, we'll just send you the copy.
Again, if there's anything that's, can I just say just on that note, like if there's anything at all, like for me, if anything, I know Gary's the same, anything that we can do that can help a child or help yourselves, help children in PE or being more physically active, just shout. And if resources we can give out and explain a bit more, because again, it's very hard to know what detail everybody will want. So shout with any questions after.
Excellent. And even as you mentioned there too, even with those cards, you can do those activities in your classroom. You could do those activities in the PE hall as part of your session to get children used to that. So when they go to their safe zone. So I'm really just conscious of our time because we do have a few other things. This is an example of some sensory circuits that you could actually have set up just in a hall. Now this is where you're taking maybe the whole class down to do something as well. A little resource book, we'll send you the link along with this. It's got loads of ideas. And that's possibly could be an individual one where you're getting the child, they're using gross motor skills, fine motor skills, but the sensors rocking back and forth. So that's
and you
just,
can do them very simple. You know,
yeah,
there's a lot of nice equipment in that photo there, but you don't need all that. You know, there's
yeah.
very simple ways to do it. So don't be put off by that.
Yeah, even, and then this is one thing that we started to bring in a lot. I know some schools will use this, but it's a zones of regulation and it's like an educational thing. We would use just simply even this card, and we can share that with you as well too. So this is just the inside out characters, and all we're trying to do is get children regulated to the green zone. Mainstream SEN, this is what we're talking about, everything in between. So children may come in, they may be bored, they may be lonely, they may be tired, they may be even unwell. How do we get them to green? Are they anxious, confused, excited, overwhelmed? How do we get them to green? Are they coming in aggressive, angry, terrified? How do we get them to green? Now, in each thing, and this is where we talk about our triggers, you will know that something has triggered that child maybe to get to red, to get to yellow. Maybe they're overexcited, anxious, and it could be something as simple as we're doing PE. And that could just boom, put a lot of children into the yellow zone. Okay, how do we get to green? So first for me is an education. Sitting down with this card with your group and explaining each of these where you maybe get to, and also then having what we call our safe zone. So Paul's mentioned it before, and he would call it my space or safe zone, whatever word you come up with it. We kind of took out the way timeout zone, because it's not just timeout to sit there, it's a safe zone. So in this, we would have maybe our magic box. So it could be, I know you want them kind of move, but to help really regulate, it could be a bit of coloring in, or it could be some different equipment that you're there. As Paul showed you the exercise cards, you can maybe make up your own. Do 10 jumping jacks, do 10 squats, step up and down in the bench 20 times, and then come back in. So even if you're saying to somebody, look, you're a little bit in the yellow zone, just go to the safe zone a little bit here, and all I want you to do is perform that card. And then whenever you're ready,
can I just jump in there, Gary? Just one thing that I found recently that was, again, I used to, same as yourself, I would have used to have always provided all the cards and all the activities for the safe zone or the magic box or whatever you want to call it. One thing I just tried last week and it actually worked really well. There was one girl who basically always told me, she says, stop telling me what to do. And she's a lot of big personality. So I thought, right, okay, how do I address that? So she went in the safe zone, but I just put a whiteboard and a marker and let her create her own activities. And she drew stick men of activities, and she all of a sudden, bang, she was great. And it was pure luck. Thankfully I did it, and I'm going to try it from now on because I calmed her down.
Brilliant, excellent. And again, that's just a perfect example. You're working in this environment all the time, and even you're constantly learning. I think that's a story too for everybody here.
Every day is a different lesson, and that's what I love about it, but that's what's challenging. And again, just one thing I just want to mention, like all the zones of regulations and all the different things, we would try and bring our, I suppose what it says, we're working maybe 10, 12 in the lesson, but we do bring our children into shared educations where they're moving to 40, and they do excellent. But as Gary mentioned at the start, we did a lot of preparation stuff and all the wee small sessions, and next thing is going to be a bit bigger. And our children just excel. So special education, smaller environments or units and mainstream environments, for me, they can integrate. It's just building the confidence up.
Brilliant. So again, and I think this is the next thing. This is just on the you would use, Paul, yourselves in terms of just different levels. And I think the idea of this, what you're saying, is really just target what I can do, and even teaching the child.
Very simply and very quickly, because I know we are close to 10. I just am a big idea of what is I can target for each child. Now this is I can share these like level 1 to 5. I got these when I first started teaching PE, and they're not really relevant for a lot of teaching children I'm teaching, but I use them as a bit of an understanding from learning intentions, and then I strip it back. Instead of taking I can run at different speeds, I can run, let them run, and you just sort of base it through. And we're big on, I just put this in because I know in mainstream, I know when I was in there, you were pressured with levels, you were pressured with age orientation, the child should be doing this, should be doing that. We, in special school environment, we look at it very different, and we look at it very much skills-based PE curriculum. So a child who is 7 years of age could be on their level 1, sort of just running, and then there could be a child who's 18, and we have children who are 18 and everything. So if I was pitching it too high to the 18-year-old who's still in level 1, they're going to be disengaged. So it's really having your activities and really knowing your child. It comes back to that, knowing your child and pitching activities to them. That's really what it is.
Brilliant. And it's all about that developmental level. And again, that's going to happen with any child. There's going to be children in any class who are the developmental level. So if we pigeonhole them to a certain age, you should be able to do this. It's just knowing that thing. I like that. Even just doing that, I can. So developing and teaching that child in front of you that day, because their skill level may be actually determined on how their mood, how they're feeling, and how they're going to engage. So brilliant.
I see even the joy in seeing children, like every child in our school play tennis, and they're playing tennis is holding a tennis racket, and that can be it.
Yeah.
But their heads are playing tennis, so I can play tennis, and that's just unbelievable the way they smile and they go home telling mommy and daddy I play tennis. And they might be fit to hit the ball, but they can hold the racket, and it's given that experience and build, and then they'll eventually build.
Brilliant. So you're already developing that positive experience. Excellent. So this is a session that we would use, and even coming into your school, Paul, we would use this constantly all the time and adapt to the child we see in front of there that day and the difficulties of it. But thing we would use is when you're running any PE lesson with mainstream. So maybe you've done your readiness to PE, you've got the children engaged. When they come in, play an instant game. Now, when we play an instant game, it's not only a tag game, it's huge, could be huge sensory overload for a lot of children. And even when we do, the first thing I notice is screaming, is noise. One thing I did the other day, we had a child in our class doing that and with autism, and it just, the hands over the ears straight away, broke down into tears, just couldn't cope with that sensory overload of playing that simple tag game. Brought all the children in, and it says, now we're going to be ninjas. So we're going to be quiet ninjas. So not even really, and one of the older classes, actually the same example last week where I explained why we're doing this, but with the younger ones, it just says, we're going to be quiet ninjas. So now as you're running, we're actually going to be really quiet so the catchers can't catch us through our sounds. And you can hear them just as soon as they go. And one skill I've learned really well when I'm doing that is just even my voice when I'm explaining that. Because you could go, we're going to be really quiet. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, let's go. And then they're like, oh yeah, let's go. It sounds simple as going, okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Go and play tag. And you're setting that tone straight away. You've brought that sensory overload for that child. They want to run around. They want to be engaged in this game. The one thing that's stopping them is the sensory overload from the noise. So it's just that instant game. Then what we would do from that is exploring the skill. We talked about this too as well, Paul, about segregating. If a child is really can't work in a big environment, this can be very individual, or it can be pair work, or it could be in small groups, or the whole class working together. But you're just getting the children to explore that, getting them to then teach the skill that you're learning for today, that learning objective. You're maybe playing a game with it and then cool down. Again, I know as I say, it's just conscious of time. We'll send all this through, but yourself, Paul, you would use something similar. You said at the start, even beginning, you were a wee bit apprehensive in the whole free play stuff, but it's really worked well.
It does. It helps you learn how to teach. Simple as that. It helps you, and it's teaching the child is there that day. Very much, basically, you described it, just using in different phrases, but that's very much the sort of ethos in which we were trying to approach a session, and it is very successful. And I think it's actually maybe moves us on to the next three sort of slide, Jerry, on the step. And again, me and Jerry actually talking the other night, and we put another T into it. So again, for me, this is how I approach every lesson, is when I'm planning it, and even when I'm in the middle of the lesson, I can get it wrong, and I'm trying to always be adaptable and look at the space, look at the time, look at the task, look at the equipment, look at the people. And I'm going to be honest with you, if there's nothing else that you take away from today's webinar, take away this step approach and really apply it, and take your time to understand it. Because I know I didn't fully when I first started teaching PE, but it took me time, and now I don't even think about it. And I'm constantly looking at the space I'm in. Is it smaller? Is it big? Is there a mini game inside a big game? Is there safe zones? Is there not? How long am I doing each task? And sometimes, and you yourself, a warm-up can become the whole day, the whole lesson, and allow that. If there's an energy created, and sometimes just let that happen sometimes, and just be aware of it in your planning and all that, correct? But let it happen. And again, the task, you're thinking, what am I asking? How am I asking? And again, it's maybe, are you using visuals? Sometimes We can use visual cards, you can use Makaton, you can use PAX depending on the child. You can just use the cones. And sometimes what I would do sometimes is set the lesson up and ask the children to tell me, what are we doing today? And I have to say, they told me completely something different. I was like, right, let's do that. And it was their games, but then I added my rules in, and then that made it fun for them, and again, the equipment and the people are key. Is it going to be, as Gary touched on, one person activities? Is it going to be two? Is it going to be three? Is it going to be four? Because that's a big thing I find with children engaging. The old classic, when we all go to our training course, get into groups or thing, even as adults were awkward around it. So think of that from a child. And sometimes allow the child to be the coach, let the people do it. And then your assistants and teachers and coaches and the whole school are so important. Are you going to bring more people in? Are you not going to bring them in? For me, how we got a child to do PE one time was the principal just sitting in the corner watching. That was just, he has a really good relationship with his pupil. She just wanted him to see that he was doing well, and simple as that. And if you have anything else to add on that, Gary? Or?
No, I think that it's a lot there that you can use your own thing with that, and just think step how when we talk even space, we would and the thing is, ask the children questions. How can we make this game easier? How could we make this harder? And even that child who maybe does have a sensory overload, who's really struggling, ask them, what was in this game we could change? And they say, oh, can they run around now, but we have to keep our finger over our mouth? Yes. Because he will more or less in his way around the way telling you that it's too loud. Or can we do it now where they can't throw the ball at you, they only have to touch it against you or roll across the ground? You know, it may be something like that, that they will actually dictate the task. And it's really giving another level of awareness or understanding. But I have a video actually on the step principle for this, and it's something I constantly use. Change the space, time, task, equipment, or people. It's amazing. You can regress and progress any lesson plan. So a lot more things on that. So just even search that up yourselves. There'll be a lot of info. Just to kind of finish off here now as well. So we have a few things that we are doing don't list, and I would use this a lot, but just remember it's child-centered. Think about the child. It has to be a positive experience. Ask questions. How can we do this easier? How can we make this harder? Is anybody a different idea? Those are the things. And let the child explore that movement. Let them explore that environment. Let them explore the game that you're doing. Add loads of praise. It cannot be underestimated. A child is doing something, just add loads of praise. Encourage their creativity. I would use the analogy if a child, any child at all, if they're not on task to what you're doing, yes, there may be a behavioral thing with that, but if they're doing something really creative, rather than stopping them, encourage that and say, for example, if I was doing dribbling with your hands and they were over here kicking the ball with their feet, but they were doing something exceptional, I would be like, big man, I love that. Now, can you hold that? Because I want you to show everybody at the end of the lesson. But for now, I think you'd be excellent at dribbling your hands. Do you think you could do that? So I'm not curbing his creativity. Yes, there may be a behavioral thing where they're not listening, and you have to address that issue 100%, but don't stop their creativity. And then at the very end, always make sure, and they will remind you, don't worry, because I've done it once or twice. Can I show my thing now? Can I? And it was actually the other day, and I had a little child in the class and gets very overwhelmed if she, doesn't be the catcher, etc. But I seen her doing something. We were doing gymnastics moves, and she was curling her body up and then making it straight, curling it up, making it straight. And it helped me actually design my lesson to that movement a little bit. And I said, you hold that, because I'm going to get you to come and do that. Now, since I said that, she was constantly asking me until I actually did. And then I let her time to shine. Asked her, did she want to come to the front? She came to the front. And I mean, she went all out for that movement. Went back at his accent. Guys, can everybody give her a big clap? That's all the attention and praise that she wanted. And that made her deliver a positive experience. I added that little bit and then progressed that movement on just from watching that. But I knew that child's triggers. I knew that would actually increase her positive experience with PE. So it's just being more aware for me would be the one. If the children all children should be in a safe environment where they can feel. And the thing I love about PE is you don't have to wait a week until you can get it right again. So, instantly in that moment, for example, if they're doing their spelling test, if they get everything on a Friday, okay, spelling next Friday. Oh my God, I got 7 out of 10. I want to get 8. I'm waiting all week. That could bring a lot of anxiety and pressure with children. Whereas in PE hall, if you bounce, ball hits your face, let's try again. Let's go again. What can we do? Can you do it lighter? Can you go back to step? Can we change the task, the equipment, the people we're passing to, the space that you're actually doing that movement in? The one here, there's small city games. The one here, when we look at both, is structured and non-structured. Depending on the children you're working with, it may have to be quite structured. Majority of the time, I would let children, especially at the primary school level, be pretty unstructured. Start getting to key stage 2, further up, more structure, less structure in that early years of development. And then some of the don'ts is, it's all about teacher-centered, it's remote control teaching, do this, do that, etc. Discouraging the creativity, just that negative experience. It sounds pretty dramatic, all of this, but unless we're maybe even aware, conscious of it, it can happen so easily. And I'm sure you've maybe done it yourself, you know, where it's like, no, okay, we're going to kick it like this, use this foot, no, don't use that part of the foot, use this part of the foot, no, no, no. But have you given them a chance before to explore those different ways to kick, before you're actually teaching them the way that you want them to do it? And that's all it is. So I know we rushed through that. That was kind of one of the slides we put it in, Paul. Anything all good in that one, really?
I just one thing, but very quickly, just Gary said there, just for me, what has worked really, really well within our school, what I always try to bring in, biggest mistake I did at the start coming in, I tried to do too much in lessons. Just keep it very simple. And for me, your teaching cues, have very simple teaching cues. For me, I just have running, marching, moving your arms up and down, marching the drums, and that I've done that with children maybe 10 years ago, and now should I run and I'll just say marching drums and they'll know exactly, and have it integrated throughout the school, because the way you run, the way you catch, the coaching cues, teaching cues are the same. That'd be my advice. If you're catching, just find something. I would use cobweb, hands around the ball or basket like that, and just continue them throughout. That would be the only thing I would suggest.
Just on the coaching cues, that is huge in this language. So you know you can search a lot of these up. Some ones I like for jumping and landing is whenever they're jumping, they're loading the springs in their leg, and you're jumping up as high as you can, or you're jumping up like a rocket. But when you land, to get children to land softly, one that I love is land in a puddle without making a splash.
Brilliant.
So
I like that one, Gary.
Without landing in the splash. Running technique, there's a load. Also as well too, if you're striking the ball with your hand, for example, even Gaelic, if you want to do short distance, I would call it like a Spider-Man pass. So you're holding your hand, so you're hitting it like Spider-Man, or you're hitting it, if you want to hit it further and you're hitting something with your fist or whatever, it's Hulk. So rather than you calling it different things, it's like Spider-Man pass, Hulk pass. And you're explaining the difference that might happen with those. So coaching cues are huge. You will pick up your own, and again, this is a big thing too. We're probably going to talk in the next lines. But as Paul said there, keep your lessons really simple. Let the kids be the teacher is massive. Let the kids be the teachers, and not dictating everything, but letting them be involved in that process. There is no need for lots of equipment for a number of reasons. Time of setting everything up, financial. But also, again, that sensory overload, a lot of colors, a lot of noise, a lot of different objects. And if they don't get the time to share it, you're increasing the risk of everything happening there. Don't overcomplicate simple games. Just that would be a nice three-step approach there. Paul, anything to quickly add in that? I know it's just...
No, spot on. Just one last thing just on the do's. For me, in my head, just for teaching cues, this last thing just on that, I always try to break it down. I remember said to me in a teaching course one time, it really works really well. The 3 S's, small sequential steps. And again, when I first started using the same step, I didn't really understand them. And it's again, just breaking things down. If they can't, it's like a child can't, if a child, teaching a child to write, if they're struggling to write, what do? We bring it back to pre-writing skills. We're getting to write in the sand, using their fingers, moving around the gaps, trying to get the fine motor skills. If they can't catch, can't run, can't jump, strip it back. Is it they can't catch what you're asking them to catch, but can they catch a handkerchief? Can they hold something and build it up like that? That's the only thing I would say. And then it's a step approach about building it up slowly and allow it, and the child let you know how much you can build it.
Small sequential. What was your sorry?
3 S's, small sequential steps.
Small sequential steps.
So small sequences and steps. Just think of, for me, just when you said that, step 1, 2, 3 just come into my head. It's like slowly building it up, and again having a skills-based curriculum in your head. And just being excited that the children are participating. I think that's just the thing. That's the main ethos I have in my head. Get excited, regardless if they learned what you did. There's a time to teach, and there's a time to do all the teaching cues. And you'll have a wee moment, maybe it could be 3 or 4 years later, and you're like, they actually remembered, and they were fit to catch it in the basket. and it's this class where
Yeah, brilliant.
you know,
It's a positive
it's
experience
just,
for everybody, child and
yeah,
teacher.
yeah, that's
Excellent.
it. That's it.
Well, so look again, so some of you may know, like we have our, this is what I was going to use with our online portal. So I know Arvely had it as well too, and you're using a lot for your movement breaks. I'll send the video link into it, but we have movement breaks, we have all the lesson plans, we have everything there designed for you to run an effective PE program. So having all this knowledge and upskilling yourself is amazing. But we have it there. We more or less, the idea of the portal is the work is done for you. You just have to go and deliver it. That's what I want with the portal. So I'll send more information to everybody's on this webinar about that. I know there's a few teachers and schools already have this, the portal. And again, we're trying to go on with, but a few other things. One I want to point out is these are a few things, resources that I would encourage a lot of people to maybe go and explore. I'll quickly talk through them. The storm break actually was an interesting call I had yesterday on this. It came at the right time. But they do well-being and physical activity through movement. So they bookmark stuff where they would, for example, we take resilience. They will do a video where the children can follow along. It's like a movement break, but they will talk a little bit about resilience, do that movement break, and then which is based around resilience. So it might be like feeling and trying something again. And then they'll finish with this is what we've learned about resilience and how we've affected that with the game. So just check those out. It's a free, it's a charity-based organization, everything that you do, and it's an amazing resource. So check that out for yourselves. Go to Disability Sport NI. There's loads of training, loads of different resources on there. The Middletown Autism, I know we've looked into, you do a lot of work with them, Paul, but it's about training and everything as well. So they're excellent. And then Paul's already put into the sensory YouTube video, which we will send out to everybody. And then books. The rhythmical movement method is really about retained reflexes. So it's brilliant. The sensory circuit books there, you've got a few retained reflexes ones. Then these are three that this one recently, we talked about what happened to you. This book is amazing. If you want to even listen to the audio, it's actually by Oprah Winfrey and a psychologist, Dr. James Bell. I think it's Dr. James, that's what's in my head now. But they talk about what childhood trapped trauma is, or we all have trapped trauma. Understanding that and even ways of trying to help people release that, not in a psychology way, but just having a better understanding. The whole brain child is amazing for children's development about what happens in our brain whenever there's an argument, whenever there's a confrontation, whenever something traumatic does happen in their life. How can we do that? And then finally, Spark, how all this physical activity actually helps regulate. First of all, children with ADHD, autism, everything, but also how it improves in academic performance. So those are things. Paul, all good on that? We'll send it all out.
Spot on. This one, I'm just going to show everyone another one I just showed today, but again, just on movement breaks. I can add it to it and send it in again. I don't know, but I can see it there. Again, just good to have. And again, when you have time, look at them. And again, I've all them books as well. I don't know if you get time to look at them, but there's times when you're having a real problem, they'll help you.
Yeah, brilliant. That's it. And this is the thing. This is all about developing your toolkit. Hopefully you've picked up something today. If it's one thing, amazing. Never be afraid to learn. Never be afraid to fail. Try it, then reevaluate. Invest in yourself, which you've done now, and I really appreciate, because I know we've ran over time, and I probably should have put this on for an hour and a half, because me and Paul, when we talk.
Apologies.
Amazing. But so it's amazing, and on everything, even these resources, those are your tools. As Paul says, they're easy to have there and just pick up. And then that's kind of it. So I know, thank you for everybody that has stayed on for this long. It's 4:20 now, so it's well. But if anybody any questions for myself or Paul, you can add into the chat box now, or I put both our email addresses on here. So I'll leave this on the screen now. You can take that down and go and maybe drop us a line, drop us an email if you want any more information and stuff. But anybody who's on this call now, we will send out any information. So, and if anybody has any questions, please jump on, or if you have any feedback on it, we'll maybe send out a wee form as well too, just to see what we want kind of moving forward. If this was beneficial to you, then brilliant. So Paul, you anything to add there? If anybody does ask a question, if they don't, we can wrap it up as well too.
Yeah, no, that's generous. Again, just thank you all for taking your time, because I know as a teacher myself, you always mean to try and get on these things, and I'll be very honest, I've never got on to them, because you credit to you. and fair play just taking the time. And again, I'm just coming from a point of view teaching and just trying my best. By no means do I know everything, and I'm sure Gary's the same. We're all learning, and look forward to hearing back. And because some of the challenges will help us as well, because what works today doesn't work tomorrow, and just keep working hard to try and keep children active. And well done for coming on. Thank you.
Brilliant. I think we have a few, just a few people just say thanks, and all very helpful. Thank you guys so much for that. And yeah, we're just here to serve and to give, and that's all we wanted to do. And I personally want to thank Paul for this. He's given up a lot of free time for this, to do that, and put in a lot of effort. And I think a little bit nervous as well, Paul, but I thought you were excellent. I think everybody
probably wouldn't be my 14. I put myself in
yeah.
front of a camera, so thank you.
So guys, so thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, anybody. You have our details there. If you do want to reach out, please do. And thank you once again for everybody's support in what we're trying to do. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Cheerio. Bye.